Welcome to Are You Down with LPT? I'm here with Tracy, Carr, and Jim Hibbs. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It almost feels like, we really haven't had winter.
Nope.
Markets are moving.
So we're going to get a new intro song here eventually, a little naughty by nature,
Just
but
gotta find
we're not there today yet. We're not
Find a
there.
band to put one together.
That's right. So we want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the market and talk to our agents, kind of what they could expect, not only for this January and first quarter, but also for the entire year. So I'm just going to kind of jump into it. I want to start with inventory. This was a quote by Greg McBride. He's chief financial analyst with Bankrate. He said, most areas will still lean towards a seller's market due to limited inventory. However, those markets that have seen a surge in inventory will definitely be more of a buyer's market and will be susceptible to price declines. What do you guys think as far as we look at the Des Moines market?
I think we are still seeing inventory issues across the board, especially in those lower price points, and those are the price points that are moving, under 400,000. Currently on the market right now, 2,300 homes roughly. Of those, since the beginning of the year, almost half are already pending, and we've closed 430, 27 days into 2025. So that part of the market is moving, and I expect it to continue to.
Well, and I think the important stat to pay attention to is the fact that 100 of those 400 that you just talked about have been LPTs. We've pended 100 transactions since January 1st, so that's impressive.
That's rocking.
Yeah. So when you look back year over year, are we where we were last year, ahead of inventory-wise?
We're ahead inventory-wise from where we were a year ago. We have built the inventory in 2024 back up. But what we're finding in 2025 is that the market is moving earlier than it did in 2024.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
The buyers are out there, again, in the lower price points. We can talk about the higher price points in a little bit. But the buyers, since the beginning of the year, I don't know if they've adjusted to the fact that, interest rates are going to be a little bit higher, and it's a pent-up demand. But
Getting used to it a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was reading this. This was another quote. This was by Altos Research. 2025 is poised to continue the trend of rising inventory across the country. We'll probably finish 2025 with 15% more homes available than we have at this moment. Realtor.com, their statistics say about 12% more homes than we have at this moment. And so I think the feeling is that inventory, not only nationally, but you guys would probably agree locally, we're going to see a pretty significant increase by the time we roll into the heavy selling season.
I think that the idea that we would add 10% to 15% in the Des Moines market just means by the end of 2025, we're at a normal amount of inventory.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know that we get there. Des Moines market still, 10 to 12,000 people moving into town every year. Again, the price point matters, but in some of those lower price points, I think that you're going to have a struggle to keep homes available for potential buyers.
And I do think that the interest rate has now started to buyers have started to absorb it, right? They've come to the realization that we're not going to see the fours that we saw before.
Yep.
So they're becoming just much more comfortable realizing, okay, 6 is where it's going to be. I've stayed out of the market, last year, but now, I can't handle it anymore. Yep. I need to get out there. And I think that's what we're seeing. I mean, even in talking to lenders, their intakes and their approvals have gone up just in these past couple of weeks. So I think that's a positive.
So let's talk rates, because rates is always one of the biggest drivers, especially in the market that we're in now. So as we look at rates, another quote by Greg McBride, he was talking about rates abnormally low for the better part of 15 years, and now they've been abnormally high for the last 2. His statement is they're coming down, but where they'll settle is going to be a level that's higher than what most people have seen since before 2022. And I think this echoes what you guys have both said. I think we're going to get maybe a little relief, or I think think. used to feel much more confident when I would talk about what rates are going to do.
Yeah.
That confidence level is not where it once was, but most people believe rates are going to probably come down, but higher levels than what we've become used to in the last 5 years or so.
Well, I think, most of the experts, the things that I'm hearing and our local bankers are talking about, if we can get down into the lower sixes, that's a plus. Maybe a bit under 6, but those are the wins in 2025.
Yeah. There was a chart. KCM had a chart, and it was showing 9 forecasters forecasting where those rates were going to be. And all of them were between about 6, and the highest one was about 6.8 of what we could expect. And the average, KCM was talking about, like, we expect to be somewhere that 6 to 6.5 range. If we can do better than that, then obviously that would be an amazing thing. But I think we need to be prepared. Like, rates aren't coming down to where they were, right?
Well, and historically, it was around 6% in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
And that was a strong market. People were buying and people were selling. It was a good time. So it's just changing that thought process of people and getting them, just like gas prices, right?
Yep.
When gas prices go up, everybody's all up in arms. But, then after a while, you just become accustomed to it.
Yep.
So they just need to become accustomed to that 6 is probably just going to be our new norm.
Do you guys remember the rate when you bought your first house?
8 3/4, 1995.
1995?
Yeah, and mine was 6.
Yeah.
So
Mine was 6 as well, and I had to do an ARM to get there, but it was like my dad made me buy it. And this is the most amazing rate he'd ever seen in his life. And it was 6, right about where we are today.
Yeah.
So rates, historically, you look where they are right now, and they are really good. But when you deal with a mindset of, hey, I've got a 3%, it makes it tough.
Well, and if you just stick to the discussion about the rates, you miss the idea that we're short on inventory, and we continue to be short on inventory, and we continue to see increased values, especially in the lower price points. These homes are creating equity for the people that buy them. Mm-hmm. You can always refinance. I think I did it between 1996 and then between a couple of houses right before 2009. Probably refinanced 3 or 4 different times, maybe even 5 different times, from that 8 3/4 all the way down to something in the 4s back then. So the rate is just one piece of the puzzle, but also that home that they're buying and that potential for building their equity and building their own wealth by buying now rather than waiting maybe 2 years from now. If we get much lower rates, well, that home's going to be worth how much more?
Yep.
10%, 15%?
So talk pricing and appreciation, because all these kind of work together, right? We look at inventory, we look at rates, and they're kind of all working together. So when you think about what we expect, this coming year, 2025, and maybe beyond, we've experienced some pretty high appreciation when we went through COVID. Tracy and I were talking earlier this morning about what was normal, and I think you had some stats from Les Selgrove even. But talk about what to expect appreciation wise.
Well, and like you said, Les, if you guys don't listen to his Simply Des Moines market report, comes out every Sunday, I suggest you do, because it's got tons of great information to keep you kind of up to date and great talking points with your clients. But yeah, he talked about last year in the Des Moines metro area, we saw 5.7% appreciation. And, like what Kyle was saying, he and I have always been through the mindset of 3% is a typical appreciation. So, 5.7% is very healthy. And again, that's that talking point that you need to have, and not focus on what the interest rate is, but focus on the fact that you're missing out on that appreciation every year. So it's actually costing you money not to buy.
I was looking, KCM, that same report, they were showing 21 different forecasters, and they ranged anywhere from maybe 6-7% appreciation at the top, and there was 2 of those 21 that anticipated even maybe depreciation, although very minimal, pretty much a flat line. But the average of all those 21 was 2.9%, which comes back to what you were saying, Tracy. Like, we talk to sellers all the time, and people thinking about buying houses, and traditionally that's a number we use, 3, maybe a little more, 4%. COVID changed that a little bit. So when you look at inventory and you look at appreciation and you look at rates, like, this is actually pretty normal. This feels
exactly.
like normal historically, and I think that's kind of where we're at. Is things are much more normal.
It's like going to the grocery store rather than picking up your groceries.
Yeah,
Things changed with COVID. We got used to all these different things, and it's now okay to go to the grocery store.
yeah.
Go inside.
It's okay. Everything's gonna be all right. So next, I think would be sales, because ultimately, we can talk about appreciation rates and whatever, but as agents, we actually need to sell houses. And you look back where we were. Here's a report. This includes both existing and new construction. I was looking a few weeks ago, and they were talking about existing sales, so excluding new construction. And 2023 was the worst year since 1995 for existing home sales. These numbers are combining existing with new. You go back to 2019, 6 million total number of sales. 2020, 6.5, right when kind of COVID started. And then 2021, which was the craziest year, 6.9 million sales. So these are nationwide numbers. And then we saw the decline. You get to the middle half of 2022, saw that dip in the market, went down to 5.7. Then we just talked about 2023 down to 4.8. 2024, worse yet, at 4.6. And so for the fourth straight year, the total number of home sales went down. I think the good news, again, we go to these forecasters, what they're expecting this coming year is they expect over 5 million home sales, which would be the best since 2022. But trending in the right direction. Is that your guys' thought? We're going to see more home sales in Des Moines?
I think so, because I think there's the pent-up need, right? Yeah. Because of those people that have left the market, but now they've realized that, I need to get back in. My house is too small, or I'm tired of renting, or I'm ready to downsize, and they're going to jump back into the market.
The thing about it, national numbers too, is we have to keep in mind, like Florida right now, you can buy condos pretty cheap right now. They're having some real difficulties. I just came from Phoenix. Things are still, to me, astronomical in price, but for them, prices have receded. So I don't think, just like when there are economic downturns and other things, Iowa tends to weather those storms at a much more even keel, even level. And that's what we've seen in 2023 and 2024. And we will continue to see in 2025. I think we're going to have a much better year than 2024. Again, just indicating by the activity that's already happened in January. The one from a pricing standpoint or a number standpoint where our agents need to understand, if you're walking into that house and the value is going to be 700 plus, well, there's a little less activity in that area, and we've got 286, and this is lumping new construction and resales together. 286 homes on the market, and just 64 of those are pending. And then the sold category in that for January and for the month of January is just 18. So understanding your market of the house you're walking into, so that might be a little different from a 2025 standpoint than that under 400,000 or the 4 to 7.
Yeah, and I think it's notable as well that last week there were 215 price reductions in our market. So, if you're having conversations with buyers, they typically say, February is the best time to get a deal. So
let's talk about that. Well, let's leave them with a couple nuggets. Like, we're thinking about working with buyers and sellers. We're starting on the buyer side. So that conversation, if I'm talking to buyers right now, how can I win as a buyer?
Well, there are fewer of you out there right now.
Okay.
The buyer bus has not fired up. That's generally right after spring break when we really get into the
beat the market. Like you're looking now, let's beat the market.
Beat the market, and additionally, because it's a slower time of year, maybe a house has been on a little longer than the sellers are comfortable with. You might be able to get a little bit better deal right now in the winter months.
Yep, I agree with that 100%. And again, talk to them about how are they going to be using their money. Especially if you have first-time home buyers, talk to them about, they're getting back a tax refund. How can you take that money and make that work for you and stop being a renter and start investing in yourself and building lifetime equity, in a home.
And take advantage of those programs, especially the first-time home buyers. Take advantage of the programs that are out there. Make sure you hook up with a banker that understands the Iowa Finance Authority opportunities and the different things that are out there that can help you with that down payment and some of the costs of getting a loan.
So let's flip it now. So good conversations to have with our buyers. Now think about getting ready to go list a house, or you just mentioned all these price reductions. So I'm talking with a seller now that's thinking about putting their house on the market. Is now a good time to sell? Should I wait until spring? I'm dealing with a seller that maybe that has been on for 30, 60, 90 days. What's that conversation about pricing as we're in the winter months and thinking about spring coming? So just talk me through that. Has the seller's market evolved? Is it a good time to sell? What do you guys think?
I think if you're going to start on the market right now, I think it's to your advantage because, again, less competition, right? Because once we get to that spring market, you're going to be flooded with more competition. So if you're going to list right now, I think it's a great time because we clearly are seeing the uptick in the approvals from the lenders. So there are buyers out there. They're ready to go. Now, if you've been on the market for a while, you might want to think about, what are we going to do to help move our home and bring our home up to make it be the first priority. And we've talked in some of our meetings about potentially doing reverse prospecting or reverse offers. If you've got, been talking to some agents that, there's interest there, but you just can't get them off the fence, talk about doing potentially a reverse offer to those buyers. And talk about maybe doing, instead of one large price reduction, do it over time. So say your clients want to do a $5,000 price reduction, maybe do $1,000 a week, right? Because in that way, it's hitting those cues of the other agents once a week instead of doing one initial hit. And then guess what? If their people aren't ready, then they're going to forget about it now but then next week they're going to see it again. So what does that say? That says that you've got motivated sellers without you really having to say it.
Yep.
We had a success story on the reverse offer out of the Clive office.
Oh,
so
sweet.
That's working. I think that those conversations with the sellers are all going to be driven by their price point and where they're at. I agree that there are going to be fewer homes in the market right now, but it's a different story for the higher price points than it is for the folks that are going to be, say, under 300 or even 400,000. I think that's just those are two different markets right now.
Yep.
And the other part is the house itself, location. Is it a house that the house sells it, or if it's a location and a lot and something that maybe once spring hits, it's going to have more pop. And it's going to be a case by case in my book.
Right. We were just discussing about how right now for acreages, it's, a lot of people aren't out looking for acreages this time of year because it's cold and it's blustery.
Nobody wants to walk out in the
nobody wants to do that. But then come springtime, and things start to green up and it's a little bit warmer and you can envision yourself out there on your acreage working and enjoying the space, not necessarily when it's 25 below out. So.
Well, appreciate you guys. Appreciate your insights. Any last words of wisdom before we leave? Or
I think the key right now is to be looking at people that, you've helped buy a home and start going back and reaching out to them and do that market report. Let them know how much equity is in their house. Those are great touches to help kind of fortify those relationships that you have.
Absolutely. The things I am doing right now, I took your advice, Kyle, and the clients from last year, reaching out to them with the RPR reports, following up along those lines. Yeah, they're not going to be selling their house, but they know somebody who will be selling a house or buying a house. Keeping that SOI attached and close to you and reaching out in a way that benefits them, not just reaching out and saying, hey, don't forget I'm selling real estate, but instead saying, hey, I have this for you because I care and I'm keeping an eye on things for you. Mm-hmm. That's going to help win the day. 2025 is going to be a good year. You just got to lean in and get at it, and we'll work on the bankers to get the interest rates.
Yeah, rates will certainly be a big indicator. But I was talking to Jay, was going through old leads, and he sent a mass text to like all these old leads, and he got some like this one. That's there's some that say that. I won't repeat what that one said. So there's some like that.
This is a PG show.
But there were several where like, oh yeah, I'd be interested. And he was talking about, first time home buyer options and, down payment assistance, those type of things, and got great response from what seemed like dead leads. But to your point where you're just talking about, like, this is the perfect time of year for you to be reaching out to people because spring is coming. People are starting to think about it. They're getting settled in, like Tracy had mentioned earlier, with what rates are. And I think there's a sense that 2025 is going to be a great time to buy.
And don't forget those CDs from 2024. I mean, it's tax time, right? Get
closing
those.
Good, another good touch point.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys. Tracy, our LPT Iowa broker, and Jim, her predecessor, really, as the first LPT broker. Yeah, that's right. So you guys are great.
Agent number one.
Agent number one in the state of Iowa, but great wealth of knowledge, and look forward to doing this on a monthly basis. Thanks, guys.